قال المؤلف رحمه الله, said the author, may Allah have mercy upon him, وما ثبت منه بالبديهة فهو ضروري. And anything confirmed by the intellect, anything confirmed intellectually, by intuition, that is, confirmed intuitively, that's a function of the intellect. That's the immediate function of the intellect. Some immediate confirmation, immediate judgments. Badiha. We're going to call it intuition. Maybe there's a better word. For now, I'm going to call it intuition. And I'm going to use the word intuitive. And this doesn't mean a mere hunch. This means an actual intellectual judgment, a confirmed, correct intellectual judgment. Anything that's confirmed intellectually by intuition, فَهُوَ ضَرُورِي, then that's necessary or granted. كَالْعِلْمِ بِأَنَّ كُلَّ الشَّيْءِ أَعْظَمُ مِنْ جُزْئِهِ, like the knowledge that all of something is more than some of it. وَمَا ثَبَتَ بِالِاسْتِدْلَالِ فَهُوَ اكْتِسَابِي, and anything that's confirmed by inference, by deduction, istidlal, by process, it's not granted, it's not immediate. فَهُوَ اكْتِسَابِي, then that's earned knowledge. That's acquired knowledge. That's iktisabi. Deduced knowledge is earned knowledge. الشرح أن العلم الحاصل بالعقل يكون بديهيا أو استدلاليا. The explanation is that the knowledge that is obtained by intellect would either be intuitive or deduced. وما ثبت من قضايا العقل بالبديهة, and any intellectual judgments confirmed intuitively, فهو ضروري, then that's necessarily known. That's granted. ويعني بالبديهة أول التوجه من غير احتياج إلى التفكر. And what he means, Imam An-Nasafiyyah, the author, we're explaining the Nasafi text in Creed. He's a Maturidi. What he means when he mentions badiha, intuition, is the mind's first, yani the mind's immediate judgment without needing to think. So the way it's worded here, awwala tawajjuh. Tawajjuh is facing something or turning to something. So imagine, for example, there was, let's say, a spider on the wall. And you're just minding your business and you just happen to turn, and right there is a big spider on the wall. So as soon as you turn to that, as soon as you directed yourself to that, as soon as you exposed yourself to that, it was immediately known to you. Now, the example I gave you is by sense, by vision. Now we're not talking about the vision of the eyes. Now we're talking about the judgment of the intellect. Something that the mind judges by its first exposure to something. It's immediate judgment that doesn't require thinking. وَذَلِكَ كَالْعِلْمِ بِأَنَّ كُلَّ الشَّيْءِ أَعْظَمُ مِنْ جُزْئِهِ. That's like knowing that all of something is more than some of it. بَعْدَ تَصَوُّرِ مَعْنَى الْكُلِّ وَالْجُزْءِ, after conceiving the meaning of all and some, which you're going to know what that means, by the way, so don't be confused by that. You're going to know what that means. If you're a little kid, you're going to know what that means if one of your toys is missing or some of your cookies are missing. Or the cat is going to know one of his kittens is missing, or the dog's going to know one of her puppies is missing. وَهَذَا أَحَدُ قِسْمَيِ الْعِلْمِ الْحَاصِلِ بِالْعَقْلِ. And this is one of two divisions of knowledge obtained by the intellect. وَالْقِسْمُ الْآخَرُ مَا ذَكَرَهُ بِقَوْلِهِ. And the other category is what he mentioned when he said, وَمَا ثَبَتَ بِالِاسْتِدْلَالِ فَهُوَ اكْتِسَابِي. And anything confirmed by inference is earned knowledge, acquired knowledge. فالاكتسابي هو الذي يحصل من الاكتساب. And so earned knowledge is what occurs by acquiring عن مباشرة الشخص الأسباب, by a person engaging the means of getting the knowledge. باختياره, intentionally. He deliberately he deliberates. That's the meaning of deliberate. That's the word itself. Deliberately. That deliberately means he looked into the details. كصرف العقل, like turning the mind on. والنظر في المقدمات في الاستدلاليات, and looking into the premises for conclusions. وكالإصغاء, and like listening. وتقليب الحدقة, and moving the eyes back and forth. That means you're thinking about something. ونحو ذلك في الحسيات, and the likes of those physical reactions. وكل استدلالي فهو اكتسابي. Every inferred knowledge, every deduced knowledge is earned. Every deduced knowledge is earned. ولا عكس, but not vice versa. It doesn't go the other way around. Not every earned knowledge is deduced. What's this footnote here? وأما الضروري فقد يقال في مقابلة الاكتسابي. When it comes to necessary knowledge, you might use that word contrary to earned knowledge. اكتسابي. ويفسر بما لا يكون تحصيله مقدورا للمخلوق. When you do so, then the daruri knowledge is that which is out of the creation's control. The daruri knowledge, the necessary knowledge, the granted knowledge is knowledge that's out of the creation's control. You can't stop yourself from knowing it. وَقَدْ يُقَالُ فِي مُقَابَلَةِ الْإِسْتِدْلَالِ. And daruri might also be said as contrary to istidlali, inferred. وَيُفَسَّرُ بِمَا يَحْصُلُ بِدُونِ فِكْرٍ وَنَظَرٍ فِي دَلِيلٍ. If you say daruri, necessary, is contrary to istidlali, inferred, then daruri would be knowledge that occurs without thinking, and knowledge that occurs without looking into proofs. So let me repeat for you. We have three words here. Daruri, necessary knowledge, granted knowledge, automatic. Iktisabi, earned knowledge, acquired knowledge. And istidlali, inferred knowledge, deduced knowledge. So where beginners like us are going to not say what he's saying here, where we might say different from what he wants to tell us, is we might equate iktisabi and istidlali. Maybe even in some of our lessons I said that. So now he's going to tell us the difference. And that's what Shaykh is saying too. So they're different. We'll see what's here. So you have three things. Daruri knowledge, necessary. So why would someone mix those? Because he would say, okay, your knowledge is either necessary knowledge or it's not necessary. So once you say it's not necessary, then you know there's two other words, iktisabi and istidlali. So you'd say, then they must be the same thing because there's only two types. Either it's necessary or it's not necessary. So if it's not necessary, you might call it iktisabi, or you might call it istidlali. Now that's true in terms of names, but it's not, that doesn't mean that those mean all the same definitions though. So to understand what he's saying here, you need to know, what does daruri mean? If daruri is contrary to iktisabi, how would you define it then? So that you understand what's the point. And how would you define daruri if daruri is contrary to istidlali? So, At-Taftazani said, and he's one of the explainers of Nasafi, he said, daruri, which is necessary knowledge, granted knowledge, automatic knowledge, it might be said contrary to iktisabi, earned knowledge, acquired knowledge. When you use these two as contrary to each other, then the meaning of daruri is knowledge that is out of the slave's control. He will know it without being able to stop himself. So where are you going to get knowledge like that? From your senses, from intuition, from tawatur. He says, and daruri might be used to be contrary or in contrast to istidlali, inferred knowledge, deduced knowledge. ويفسر بما يحصل بدون فكر ونظر في دليل. When you make these two contrary to each other, then the way to explain daruri is to say it means what occurs, the knowledge that occurs without thinking and without looking into proofs. فمنها هنا جعل بعضهم العلم الحاصل بالحواس جعل بعضهم العلم الحاصل بالحواس اكتسابيا. So from here, some of them say that the knowledge acquired by senses is earned, اكتسابي. أي حاصلا بمباشرة الأسباب بالاختيار. And what that means, what would make that earned if the knowledge you get by your senses is earned? Because we already said whatever you know by senses is going to be automatic. You can't stop yourself from knowing it. We gave the example of turning and seeing a spider on your wall. You're just going to know it as soon as you subject your senses to it. So what would that mean that it's earned? Why isn't it just automatic? Because what that means here, if we say that the knowledge acquired by senses is earned, means that it occurs by willingly engaging the reason, by willingly engaging the cause of the knowledge. That means by looking and listening actively, we mean actively looking, like looking for something, listening to something or for something. وَبَعْضُهُمْ ضَرُورِيَّةٌ. And some say, no, the knowledge that's gained by senses is daruri. It's daruri. أي حاصلا بدون الاستدلال. What they mean is that you get it without inference. Yani, doesn't need proof. That means it's automatic. So the words are very close here. The meaning's so close. If you have any question, feel free to ask. وعلى القول بأن الضروري هو ما يقابل الاستدلالي مشى الشارح رحمه الله تعالى. And saying that necessary is contrary to inferred is the way our explainer, that's our Shaykh, that's the way he went. So now we're going through all these details, but in general, what we're going to say is necessary knowledge is that knowledge that occurs automatically, doesn't need proof. And inferred knowledge is what needs proof. And iktisabi, yani, either way, when we say iktisabi or istidlali, it's contrary to daruri. Daruri is the automatic one. So what did the Shaykh say up here? They got us down to that footnote. وَكُلُّ اسْتِدْلَالِ فَهُوَ اكْتِسَابِي. Every inferred knowledge is earned. So from here, it's valid to use either one of those. If it's inferred, deduced, concluded, then it's earned. So from here, it will be valid to use either one of those, contrary to daruri. Wala aks, but not vice versa. Not every earned knowledge is istidlali because of the way they define things. Because some of them say, when you deliberately engage your senses, then a this is an acquisition. But that doesn't mean it's going to be a deduction, though. Deliberately engaging your senses doesn't amount to a deduction. So not every iktisabi is istidlali. قال المؤلف رحمه الله والإلهام ليس من أسباب المعرفة بصحة الشيء عند أهل الحق. The author, may Allah have mercy upon him, said, inspiration is not any of or one of the causes of knowledge for the correctness or authenticity of something, of anything, according to the people of the truth. SharH, the explanation. أن إلهام الولي ليس من أسباب العلم القطعي, is that a saint's inspiration is not one of the causes of definitive knowledge. So in the text, he only says al-ilham, the inspiration. So someone might think that means anyone's inspiration. And our explainer tells us this means the saint's inspiration. So then, if even the saint's inspiration is not a cause of knowledge, then for sure no one else's is. Yani someone less than a saint, that is. That means he could be wrong, that saint. فهو ليس بحجة. It's not evidence. وَالْمَنَامُ أَقَلُّ شَأْنًا. And the dream has even less regard. And the dream has even less regard. Very important. وَالْمُرَادُ والمراد بالإلهام هنا ما يلقى في القلب من طريق الفيض. And what's meant by inspiration here is what is thrown into the heart by way of fail, like he is overcome with that. ومعنى الفيض ما يكون من غير سابقة طلب. The meaning of fail means overflow, unless it means something else I don't know, is what happens without, or what occurs without having previously sought it. Meaning, it's like he knows something, but he didn't engage any normal way of knowing it. He didn't look into it or listen to it or deduce it or anything like that. But it occurs to him. And he might be right, actually, that saint. وَيُقَالُ لَهُ الْوَارِدِ بِاصْطِلَاحِ الصُّوفِيَّةِ. And according to the terminology of the Sufis, that's called al-warid. That means something that comes. لذلك قال رئيس الصوفية وشيخهم أبو القاسم al-Junayd. That's why the head of the Sufis and their Shaykh Abu al-Qasim al-Junayd said, ربما تخطر للنكتة من نكت القوم. It might be that some people's issue occurs to me. فلا أقبلها إلا بشاهدي عدل من الكتاب والسنة. But I will not accept it without two witnesses from the book and the sunnah. Meaning, I don't accept this which occurs to me without any religious evidence. He's saying, if such a thing did occur to me, I know that that's not evidence. I can't take that which crossed my mind as a proof. That's the case of a Sufi saint. How about the case of a paranoid ignoramus? He will swear that what crosses his mind is the fact of the matter without any evidence. وَالنُّكْتَةُ هِيَ الْوَارِدُ. And the nukta here that I translated as an issue, some people's issue, that's the warid. That's what came. وَاعْلَمْ بِأَنَّ الشَّيْءَ الَّذِي يَقُولُهُ الرَّسُولُ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ مِنَ الْبَلَاغِيَاتِ. No, also, that anything that the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam says concerning the conveyances, فهو علم قطعي بالنسبة لمن سمع من الرسول, then it is definitive knowledge for whoever heard that directly from the Messenger. وشاهد معجزاته, and witnessed his miracles, كأبي بكر وعمر وغيرهما, like Abu Bakr and Umar and others. So now, before I go further, you might say, but I am not included there. I didn't witness the messenger or his miracles. So does this mean that I don't have definitive knowledge of what the prophet conveyed? Is this what's being said? No, that's not what's being, yani. What someone might think that means is not what's being said. You could still have definitive knowledge of what the messenger conveyed by another way. There's another way besides hearing it directly from his mouth and seeing his miracles. And he tells us right here, أما بالنسبة لمن لم يرى الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم. As for whoever never saw the messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم, ولم يسمع, and he never heard from him, إنما بلغه, and that merely his case is that what came from the messenger reached him through intermediary. فإن كان متواترا كالقرآن فقد بلغنا عن الرسول أنه قال. فإن كان متواترا كالقرآن, if that were successive mass report, like the fact that he did miracles in the first place, without naming any one miracle in particular, his performance of supernatural feats is reported by successive mass report. So it's like you saw him do miracles, even if you didn't, but it reached you by tawatur. And some of his news, what he said, also reached you through this way. And what he did, like how did he pray? Do you have a doubt that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam prayed 5 times per day, and that he would bow and prostrate and recite Al-Fatiha, and that he fasted Ramadan because you didn't see him, and that he paid zakah, and that he performed the Hajj, etc., and he made wudu? You have no doubt about these things, even though you didn't see him. That also reached you by tawatur. So you have definitive knowledge. But when it comes to a particular statement that was reported about the Prophet ﷺ, over another statement, that's where you don't have the definitive knowledge. And someone who directly heard from him would have that because he heard it come from the Prophet's mouth ﷺ. You didn't, that particular statement. Then when it comes to there, then there's the levels that we know of: authentic reports and fair reports, weak reports, and there might even be fabricated reports that it didn't come from the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. So what follows from that is to say, we do have, though, strong confidence about so many reports, confidence that's so strong that we're going to confirm it. And we have enough confidence in some reports that we will accept them. And we don't have enough confidence in some reports, so we're not going to apply them. But we're not going to say they're fabricated. So, أما بالنسبة لمن لم يرى الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم. Now concerning who did not see the messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam and did not hear from him, and that rather what he has reached him was conveyed to him by intermediary, then if this mode of conveyance were successive mass narration, Kal Quran, like Quran, the Quran, it was narrated as such in this way. فقد بلغنا عن الرسول أنه صلى الله عليه وسلم قال إنه منزل عليه or منزل عليه من قبل الله. It did reach us that he said that this document that's confirmed for us word for word, it is confirmed for us also that the Prophet said this was revealed to him from God. It's confirmed for sure by mass report that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam claimed, yani, because claims can be true or false, that this book was delivered to him by an angel from God himself. بطريق التواتر فالعلم بصحته فالعلم بصحته قطعي استدلالي. So the knowledge of the authenticity of the Quran's authenticity is deduced. The knowledge of its authenticity is deduced. And yani, the knowledge of the Prophet's truthfulness is deduced also. The knowledge of his truthfulness in the first place. ولولا ذلك لكان كل من تواتر عنده حصل له العلم القطعي بصحة ما جاء به محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Something now I've finally understood it. So he says here, Rahimahullah, it reached us from the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he said, he claimed that this Quran that he has was delivered to him by an angel from God. And this claim of his reached us by way of tawatur, as well as that text. That text stayed authentic until now. It reached us letter by letter by way of tawatur. So the knowledge of this, the knowledge of the correctness of this is definitive and it's inferred. It's definitive and it's inferred. Inferred here is very important. So, ilm is what? Knowledge is the conception of something as it is in reality. When we say qat'i, definitive knowledge, that's just merely an emphasizer. Because realizing something as it is in reality that's it. So if you say after that, for sure, then yani, whether you said for sure or you didn't say for sure, we're talking about reality here. So qat'i, for sure, that's emphasis. And this is by tawatur. And this is istidlali. This is deduced, inferred. وَلَوْلَا ذَلِكَ. And had it not been for that, had it not been that this is inferred, لكان كل من تواتر عنده حصل له العلم القطعي بصحة ما جاء به محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. Had it not been what? Not had it not been that this is narrated by tawatur. Not had it not been that this is knowledge. Had it not been that this is deduced. Had it not been that the Prophet's truthfulness is deduced and inferred. Yani, had it been necessary. لولا ذلك. Had it not been for that, لكان كل من تواتر عنده حصل له العلم القطعي. Then everyone that got wind of that successive mass report of the Prophet's claim would have had definitive knowledge of what the Prophet came with, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. ولكن كثيرا من الذين شاهدوا معجزاته لم يوقنوا بخبره. However, Many of those who witnessed his miracles were not sure about his news. They saw the miracles and they still weren't sure. Why? How? مع أنهم سمعوا لفظه, although they heard his very own expression coming from his mouth, كأبي جهل, like Abu Jahl. لذلك نقول هو نظري بالنسبة لمن وصل إليه الخبر. This is why we are saying that this is pondered concerning the one who got that news conveyed to him by intermediary. Yani, if people who met the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and saw his miracles weren't sure, then what would be the case of people who get news by intermediary about the Prophet's claim? About the Prophet's claim. And what we're saying here, in other words, is those are the people who did not deduce. They did not infer. Either they didn't do it properly or they just disregarded it altogether. Not to mention that Allah tells us in the Quran that the kuffar knew that the Prophet was truthful, alayhi salatu wasalam, the pagans and the Jews, but they were just too stubborn to admit it. So supposing though that there was someone who he saw the miracles, he heard the claim, but he still wasn't sure. Why would he not be sure? Because of not deducing, yani not committing. Why wouldn't he deduce? Could be that he's an oblivious person. Basically, he's a fool, heedless one. Yani someone who's happy-go-lucky, unaware, so he doesn't put things together like he should. That's why those ones could see the Prophet's miracles themselves, Abu Jahl and his likes, and not believe because of not deducing. Or if they did deduce and they knew within themselves, then what was left? That they were just obstinate. Both of those are a problem. So we ask Allah that we don't be heedless and that we don't be obstinate. Ameen. ولو كان بديهيا لتساوى الناس في قبوله. Had the Prophet's claim been known intuitively, then all of the people would have accepted it equally. ولكن بعض المشاهدين كأبي لهب ما قبله. However, some of those who witnessed firsthand, like Abu Lahab, they still didn't accept. والخبر في الأصل يحتمل الصدق والكذب. And news, fundamentally, is possibly true or false. فإذا قيل قام زيد. So if it were said, Zayd stood, يحتمل أن يكون ما أخبر به من قيام زيد شيئا حاصلا واقعا. Then it's possible that this news that was told about Zayd's standing is true. ويحتمل أن يكون غير واقع. And it's possible that it's not true. والعقل يقبل وقوع هذا الشيء وعدم وقوعه. The mind alone accepts the occurrence of this thing, this standing of Zayd, as well as accepts its non-existence. Both of those are possible to the mind. So that's why this is news, khabar. This is not a request. We're not talking about requesting. Request is not true or false. If you say, go to bed, that's not true or false. Or you say, can I have some water? That's not true or false. What's true or false is news, what they would call in English a declarative sentence, يعني a declaration, a statement. لذلك قالوا الخبر باعتبار ذاته يحتمل الصدق والكذب. This is why they said news intrinsically is possibly true or false. Yani, the truth and the falsehood in the mind are equal. When a news is presented to you, truth and falsehood are about the news are equal to the mind. One thing to be mindful of, though, is to whom do you give the benefit of the doubt? What I mean by that is, okay, news can be true or false. So somebody might tell you something, and then you will, on the strength of who told it to you, you will give weight to truthfulness. So what if you have a bad judge of character? Then you're going to give weight to truthfulness when it shouldn't be. You're going to give weight to reliability when you should not. I heard more than one sloppy Wahhabi say, I got it from a good source. Unlikely. And a lot of times, if you ask people like that, who, they don't want to tell you. And if you do that with a kafir, he will think you're silly. You said to a kafir, who told you that? He might say, well, about anything you're talking about. He might say, are you serious? Like, let's say a kafir told you, oh, of course the earth is spinning. They have satellites. So if you told him, who told you that? He'll say, what? What's wrong with you? He's serious. Subhanallah. So, وَهُنَاكَ خَبَرٌ لَا يَحْتَمِلُ الْكَذِبَ. And there is some news that is not possibly false. وَهُوَ خَبَرُ اللَّهِ. That's the news of God. God's news. وَخَبَرُ الرَّسُولِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. And the messenger's news. May peace and blessings be upon him. مِمَّا يَتَلَقَّاهُ مِنْ قِبَلِ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى. That news that he acquires from God. Exalted is he. فَهَذَا لَا يَحْتَمِلُ الْكَذِبِ. Such news could not possibly be false. بَلْ يَجِبُ كَوْنُهُ صِدْقًا. Rather, it is necessary that this news would be true. Who would say otherwise? Yani, a very horrible person would say otherwise. Because what we're saying here is his mental judgment. Mental judgment is that if there's news from God, then it's true. If you told any person who's just not a game player and a rotten person, news from God is true, he would say, well, sure. But there's some people like Mu'tazila and atheists. If you told them news from God is true, they would say, we need to investigate this. Is news from God always true? Maybe God is a liar. That's blasphemy. That's the type of thing Mu'tazila used to say. Is it possible that God's a liar? Is it possible that God is a wrongdoer? وَكَذَلِكَ الْخَبَرُ الْمُتَوَاتِرُ. Likewise, successive mass narration. That needs to be, it must be 100% factual. وهو ما أخبر به جمع كثير عن مشاهدة وإحساس. That is what was reported by a big group who witnessed something, witnessed an event. واستمرت هذه الكثرة في الطبقة الأولى. And then this abundance lasted through the first level, the inception stage of reporting, the first level of reporters. وهي التي شاهدت المخبر عن وهي التي شاهدت المخبر به. That level is the level of the people who actually witnessed what's being told about. وَالثَّانِيَةِ وَالثَّالِثَةِ. And then the second level and the third level, they stay abundant. They keep massive numbers of reporters. فَهَذَا الْخَبَرُ أَيْضًا لَا يَحْتَمِلُ الْكَذِبِ. Such news also could not possibly be false. وَأَمَّا مَا نَزَلَ عَنِ التَّوَاتُرِ فَهُوَ مُسْتَفِيضٌ. As for what is less than tawatur, it's called mustafid, overflowing. وَيُقَالُ لَهُ الْمَشْهُورِ. And it could also be called famous or popular. So what's wrong with that? What's wrong with being overflowing or famous or popular? In context of what we're saying, it's possibly false. Being famous or popular doesn't mean it's true. People say many things. And then when those things get said a lot, it becomes taken as granted, taken for granted. And then that's it. It's like it's a fact. So, for example, now I haven't checked this, might be true, might be false. But people say, oh, you know that drink, Mountain Dew? Whoa, I heard that they use beetle shells for the coloring. Oh no. Or what about this product, Doritos? I heard that they have such and such in the cheese. So then these types of things, they get said over and over and over. And then people just take them and they say them like they are facts. Those are small examples right there that Allah Ta'ala granted me to be able to think of. Maybe it's true, but I never checked it. Now, I don't know anybody who checked it personally, as far as I know. But I probably could easily find anyone, people I don't even know, they will say those things. I don't think they checked it. Also, when taking care of the dead Muslims, there's like rumors that the Muslims say. Seems these things they say, I don't know where they get these things. So just because somebody's saying it, or even two people, or three people, or five people, or all the people, you might want to check what you're hearing. Don't just repeat it. وَمِنْهُمَا هُوَ دُونَ ذَلِكَ. And some reports are even less than that. فَالْمُسْتَفِيضُ الَّذِي هُوَ الْمَشْهُورُ حُجَّةٌ فِي الْاِعْتِقَادِيَّاتِ. So the overflowing report, the overwhelming report, which is the famous or popular report, it is evidence in creedal matters. I'm talking about when it's authentic. لِإِفَادَتِهِ الْعِلْمَ كَالْمُتَوَاتِرِ, because of its promoting knowledge, like successive mass report. Oh, now here someone's going to get confused. Wait, how that's promoting knowledge like successive mass report? How would it promote knowledge it's not successive mass report? If so, if that promotes knowledge, then what's the big deal about successive mass report? Yeah, it could promote knowledge, but the difference is that successive mass report promotes necessary knowledge. Who can remind us? What's the proof that Tawatur promotes necessary knowledge? 5, 4.
It's not normally conceivable they would agree on a lie.
La. 3, 2. A person would not increase in certainty if he was not. No. The proof, 1, the proof is that knowledge takes place for those who don't have the expertise of researching. They never witnessed and they don't have the expertise of researching. And they don't even have the expertise of deducing. And they still get knowledge by successive mass report, like the children. That's proof that successive mass report promotes necessary knowledge. Even the children get knowledge by it. Those who have the power of deduction and the expertise of research, they get knowledge by such reports. And those who don't have the power of deduction and the expertise of research also get knowledge by this type of report. What's this one then? This overwhelming report, which is a popular report, which is evidence for creedal matters because it promotes knowledge like successive mass report. What's the difference? The difference is this one only promotes knowledge for an expert. As for anyone who's not an expert, then he has to take the expert's word. So some expert, like let's say Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, he could look into these types of reports, Mustafid, overwhelming report, Mashhur, famous or popular report. And because he's such an expert, knowledge will occur for him. And it's going to be istidlali, it's going to be inferred knowledge. But it won't occur for us because we are lacking that expertise. So I think I gave you an analogy before. Take the example of someone who's an expert in uh, video footage and audio media. Someone who's an expert in video, audio media. So this one, because of his expertise, he might be sure, he might have knowledge that some media is authentic recording, not manipulated. Or he might know that it's manipulated, whereas one of us, we wouldn't know. I actually saw an Instagram clip. I don't know what they call those clips or reels or whatever. So a guy pushes a lady off of a cliff for uh, some type of rope experience. It's not bungee jumping. It's something else. I don't know what you call it. But anyway, I looked at the footage and I heard the sound. And in my heart, I feel that the sound doesn't go with the video. I have no proof. Just seems like something's not there, though. Doesn't. And then turns out that's the case. When I shared it with someone, they said, "Oh, they lifted that sound from an old video, and put it on here." Now, I'm no expert in those things, but just was, I guess I have some kind of maybe some experience of some sort that made me able to at least be doubtful that this is real footage with the sound. And Allah knows best. We'll stop there. Any question? So the mashhur sahih will give the expert qat'i knowledge. It can. Two types of reports promote knowledge: successive mass report and authentic famous report. But authentic famous report, if it does promote knowledge, it will only be for an expert. So what would make it promote knowledge as opposed to not promoting knowledge for him? Yani, then maybe one needs to be an expert for that. We're just going over the qaida here. This is a rule. This is a fundamental rule for us here. This rule will take you a long way. This rule that I gave you without even knowing more details, that's a gap. That's a filled gap for you. That's important detail there. Just that much. Knowing that much fills a gap for you. Mashhur gives knowledge, could give knowledge to the expert. No, you're welcome. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك